All right, now we're going to get into some modeling. So I've brought in both of our CAD files. I've cleaned up level 1, and this is where I'm at. And now we're going to get into modeling some walls, some vertical elements. Now, remember, we are tackling this project from a structural standpoint, okay? What we are, you and I as Revit users, especially if we're not an engineer or an architect, think about the physical builders that go out there on the site. Concrete builders, they're not architects and engineers, but they're builders, okay? That's what we are. We are virtual builders. And in this case, since we're talking about walls, and we're talking about walls that support a structure, we very rarely, in the structural side, will use every wall that an architect has drawn for the purposes of supporting the structure. So in this case, our structural model or our concrete model, it isn't going to look like a nicely finished architectural product. We are building the bones that's going to support this thing. So let's get into modeling some walls. So let's go to your structure tab and hit wall under the structure panel, and make sure that on the drop down you select wall structural. All right. Now it takes you right into a drawing mode. You can see that my cursor has changed. But remember when we talked about modeling elements, where your mouse needs to naturally pass, right? So we went to structure, we clicked on wall drop down, and then our mouse needs to hover over this options bar before you go into this drawing area to actually start modeling, okay? But if we are in level 1, right, we're at the first story where people are walking with their feet, and we are starting to model these walls, you can see that the default in Revit is to go down, depth. So Revit is saying, oh, you want to start at this level and go down? Fight the habit of not going through these options, okay? So let's go through these and tell Revit, we're communicating with Revit and saying, no, we want it to go up. Revit tells you got to reset and keep going with your options. And the next option over, we tell Revit, we want the top of this wall to go to level 2. And on the location line, let's go ahead and show you guys these different options, all right? This location line is based on a clockwise modeling order. What do I mean by that? Right now it says wall center line, and I'm going to go in clockwise order. I'm going to click once, hover over, click twice, come down, click 3 times. That is a clockwise order, right? Now if I hit undo a couple of times, and we go back into our wall tool, and we change this location line to say finish face exterior. Now when I repeat the same example, I click once over here, you can see where Revit is placing the wall in relationship to my location line. So if I click right here and I come back down, so you can see where my cursor is. My cursor is representing the finished face exterior side of that wall. If after I'm done placing both of these walls and I hover over, I hit my tab key and click, you can see where the endpoints are. The endpoints are at the finished face exterior. Now, I mentioned how that's very important when you're modeling in clockwise order, because if you have this finished face exterior option, but you model counterclockwise, your buttons, your points will be confusing. So if I go back and say structural wall, and I have my location line set to exterior finished face, now if I go right to left and I come down, and I come back over, you can see that now where the location line is isn't accurate, okay? This all comes down to your ability to be patient while you are setting up your model. When the location lines are correct on your walls, it becomes so much easier to make changes to that wall later down the life cycle of the project. Because it's very rare that we're going to model a couple of these walls. It's very rare that that wall will stay exactly where it is until it gets built. The thickness of the wall might change, the material might change, a lot of things might change. So it's important now, as you're setting up the beginning stages of your model, to take all of these settings very, very literally. It will come organically out the more you do it. Okay, so now let's delete all of these walls. I'm going to select one, hit select all, using my keyboard shortcuts, SA, and just doing a good old delete. And you see how we can see all these super thick lines and thin lines? We just want to see lines here. So at the top on your quick access toolbar, go ahead and hit thin lines, and we should only see lines now, okay? Now let's assume that in our communication or our company's communication with the architects, they've come to the conclusion that this exterior wall right here needs to be concrete, and these two interior walls need to be concrete, and we'll say that these retaining walls out here are obviously concrete, but we can't, structurally we can't make it what the architect wants in this case, right? So let's go ahead and put some concrete walls out there. So wall, structural. I'm going to say finish face exterior, and I'll just draw from this point on the CAD background to that point, and I'll hit escape. So now the wall is there. It highlights when I select it, but right now my view is set to a wireframe, which means everything's transparent. So at the bottom of my view control bar, I will say hidden. That way it's obvious that when we put a modeled element there, it begins to hide our background, okay? So let's take a look at what this wall looks like in 3D. On your keyboard, type in 3D. And now let's go back to level 1 and type in WT for window tile, window tile. And now you can see that wall is right there. All right. Now let's continue cleaning up our workspace. Let's hide scope boxes. So select it, right click, and under hide in view, let's hit hide category. You can do the same thing for levels. Hide in view, hide category. And now to clean this up, we do not want to see a wireframe. We want to see something nicely shaded. And those, you see that line in the middle? That is an analytical category. We can turn that off in our visibility graphics. VG, go ahead and find analytical model categories and deselect the main checkbox. All right, so now we have an idea as to how our wall is looking like. We have something that we can view. Always keep your 3D view open when you're modeling. There are cases, like right now, where we are modeling in a plan view in level 1, but you always want to see what it is looking like in your 3D. Because if something looks off, at least you can diagnose it now. All right. So let's go back to plan view, and let's start adding more walls. Go ahead and select this wall, right-click on it, and hit Create Similar. And now that we're in the interior of the wall, interior of the building, we can change our location line to say wall center line, and let's just center it in between on this wall here. The lines should highlight. Let's go ahead and go over here with it, and then we can center it over here as well. And we'll stop to the outside face like that. Now I'm going to draw a vertical line here so I can use that line as a reference to use my extending tools. So annotate, and now we'll go to detail line, and I'll just draw a line just like that. Escape twice. And now on your keyboard type in TS for trim single, also known as extend single. Select your destination, select the element you want to extend, and hit OK, and hit escape twice. Okay, so we have 3 walls in here so far. I'm going to model another wall out here. Right, we'll model another wall out here. So I'm going to select that original one. For create similar, I'll type in CS this time. And I'll show you another way of modeling this wall by using the pick lines option. Our properties stayed the same on our options bar. And now I can use an existing line that already exists to place my wall. So in this case, I will select this outside version, right? And now you can see that Revit gives me a hidden line because it's communicating back with me. I had selected on the options bar that I needed the location line to be finished face exterior. So now Revit is asking me, you're using the pick lines tool, is this where you want the wall to go? And I say yes by clicking. And there you go. Once we select the wall, you can see that our endpoints represent the finished face exterior, okay? If you ever need to change it for whatever reason, remember everything has properties. So select the element that you want to modify, go to your properties, and under the location line, which is the first option, you can change where you want that line to be, okay? All right, so now we have some walls here. I'm not going to model the retaining walls just for sake of time on this video. I want to talk about naming. Naming is very important when you're talking about sharing this model later on with other people, other project teams relating to this project. There is a term in concrete which is called shotcrete, and it's a preferred way of building a wall, right? It's literally liquid concrete in a hose that they will shoot against a form, a wood form. Remember that we are virtual builders. We are the concrete builders in real life. We are them in the virtual world. So we are tailoring this model in a way that it can eventually communicate with them. So you start doing that communication by the way you name your walls. So for example, this wall, you can see it highlighted in 3D. That is the exterior wall, right, that is supporting this building. Same thing with this one over here. I'm going to hit Control, right? These are both exterior walls. Well, you see the name of these walls right now over here on this type selector? It's just generic at 8 inch. Let's go to Edit Type. Let's pull this guy over. And you can see the Revit out-of-the-box wall types that we have. You can build on that, okay? You can delete as much as you want. You can build on this. And we're going to use 8-inch concrete, okay? But this time we're going to add more information to it. So let's go to Rename. And let's remove concrete from the end. And this is how I've learned to rename concrete elements. Okay, that's worked best in my experience when communicating this to the field. Is how is the wall going to be built? Shotcrete. Where is the wall? Exterior. And then the dimension of the wall. Okay. You don't need to put concrete in the name of this wall because the word shotcrete is enough explanation. Speak to your in-house supervisors in the engineering department to figure out, hey, can we use shotcrete when we're modeling, or ask them the question about shotcrete versus cast in place. Okay, so this one we'll leave at 8 inches. Shotcrete exterior 8 inches, and now go ahead and hit OK. Now click in your 3D. Let's just zoom in here. You can see that the two walls that we were working on have a slightly different color of gray than the other two. Go on your view control bar at the bottom. Let's go ahead and hit realistic. So as Revit thinks, it is now going to apply a concrete hatch to that. So now that helps you better understand what you're looking at, and you can see what you've worked on and what you've refined as you've gone through. If we zoom in on plan, you can see that our material has updated. Okay, that's an important factor for later. So right now we are just figuring out how this thing is going to be built. All right. So a couple more changes. Let's just assume that this wall is actually a 10-inch wall. Okay. So now we can go back into our edit type. If you want to change it here, it's fine. That's what I'll do. Let's rename this. And we'll name it Shotcrete Exterior. And on the function, I like to keep this very literal, exterior. Okay. Now these interior walls, you guys are already seeing the pattern. So these, we'll also name these Shotcrete, interior, and then their thickness. So let's change these to first be Shotcrete exterior 8-inch, right? Nothing really changed. But now we'll go into edit type, we'll make a duplicate, and then we'll rename this to be interior. And hit OK. And on the function, let's go ahead and hit the drop down and say interior. All of these options with functions and naming and all this, it might sound like a lot of work in the beginning. But right now, after we are setting the foundations for building a template using a project, okay? And all of these options that we're setting right now just helps to be able to extract information by rules. So don't ignore the importance of these options, and we'll hit OK. All right, so we'll leave this one as 8 inches, and we'll just say that this one goes to 10 inches. So we'll just duplicate this one, rename it to 10 inches, and don't forget to update the structure to also be 10 inches. And we'll hit OK, and OK. You can see that it updated the size. But you see the importance of setting the location line. When we change this wall to be 8-inch thickness to 10-inch thickness, it made the wall thicker based on that location line. That would happen the same thing out here with this wall. Remember, we changed that to be Shotcrete exterior 10 inches, and you see now that it pushed the wall into the building based on where the location line was. All right, so that location line is very important. It's not a make it or break it. Like it won't, break your model if you don't set it up. But when you when you are patient and you put enough time and effort into this setup, it'll make your life a lot easier.